distinguished faculty, administrators, parents, grandparents, sibling friends, and above all, to the graduating class. It's an honor to be standing here before you because when I received the invitation, I thought to myself, who am I to speak at the commencement of the University of Maryland's Department of Communication? So, like the recovering journalist that I am, I did a little digging and found that previous commencement speakers included a member of Congress, 2 lieutenant governors, and a former U.S. ambassador. You've also hosted a fair number of media personalities as well. So after I realized that, I thought, perhaps I am in good company, because I'm sort of a hybrid, a journalist and elected official. And so being a mashup, I started thinking about my own journey through life and pondering my own identity and my ongoing search for my own interests, my own loves, and myself. This journey that I'm on, and this journey that all of you are on, is ultimately about one thing: finding your truth. My journey in this region began 23 years ago when I first came to Washington, D.C. to attend college. I grew up in a household with a single mother and just me, and my mom and I lived in a house in New York, and she worked 2 jobs to provide for us. I was the first in my family to attend college. We packed our small car full of all my stuff, and when we arrived in Washington, D.C., my mother started crying. They were tears of joy for the new life that I was about to forge, but there were also tears of sadness, because in her heart she knew I was ultimately going to make the D.C. region my home. It was the truth. And while I was in college, I studied hard, worked part-time jobs, and had a fun social life, but I never dated. I couldn't figure it out at first. What was it about all the women in my life that made me not really interested in dating them? And you might know where I'm going with this one. It took me a little while, but after I graduated from college, I realized that I was gay. And this was the 90s, and while those of you now might be watching shows like RuPaul's Drag Race, I just want you to know that in the 90s, things weren't all as open and accepted. You know, for a point of reference, Ellen DeGeneres, in her first TV sitcom back in 1997, when she announced that she was gay on television, the backlash was swift, and her show was canceled. And aside from Ellen, there weren't many LGBTQ members represented in the media. But I came out to my friends and my family because it was the truth. It was my truth. Growing up, I wanted to be a teacher, then an astronaut, and then finally decided that I wanted to be a journalist. I've never asked a therapist as to why I wanted to be a journalist, but I think it's because when I was growing up and my mom was working 2 jobs, I was home alone a lot watching television. Not just shows like Saved by the Bell or Beverly Hills 90210, although they were awesome. I was also enthralled by a new television channel, the cable news network. CNN was in its infancy, but I was mesmerized by the instantaneous source of information. I wasn't obviously a normal kid, that's the truth. But when I came to college, I double majored studying broadcast journalism and political science. I joined the campus television station and did some reporting on local issues, learning the craft along the way. And one day there was a career fair full of hundreds of employers, and as I walked around, there it was in all its glory, a booth for CNN. I had a quick conversation with the representative, handed her my resume, and nearly forgot about the encounter. But a few months later, I received a phone call on my landline phone, inviting me to an interview for an entry-level position as a researcher. I interviewed for the job and actually didn't get it. But then a few weeks later, for some strange reason, they called me, said the job was still available, and would I like the job? And without hesitation, I said yes. That started my 12-year career at CNN, where eventually I served as a producer and off-air reporter covering Congress and presidential campaigns, traveling in the country with then-Senator Barack Obama, John McCain, and political leaders across the spectrum. I know I wasn't any Anderson Cooper, but I would roam the halls of Congress, talking to members of Congress, talking to senators and cabinet secretaries. And similar to the adrenaline rush a firefighter receives when they get that emergency call, I too would get bursts of energy when I would learn facts and relay them to our viewers and readers. That's why I wanted to become a journalist. It was the pursuit of the truth. And while I loved my time at CNN, I quickly realized that most people think that the world begins and ends on Pennsylvania Avenue, from the White House to the Capitol building. But it's not Pennsylvania Avenue where our daily quality of life is measured. It's on our local main streets, where our roads, our schools, and our businesses are. I learned that lesson when I wanted to fix a sidewalk in my neighborhood. And while I knew how Congress worked and how the federal government worked, I didn't know who to talk to in my county about making pedestrian safety an important issue in my neighborhood. It was that love of local engagement, grassroots advocacy, and fixing sidewalks that made me want to leave CNN and get more involved in my community. And now, I'm an at-large member of the Montgomery County Council, which means that I represent all 1.1 million residents covering 500 square miles, helping to improve our roads, our schools, and our businesses through the thoughtful stewardship of our $5.6 billion budget. And in order to be a thoughtful steward of the county budget, which is larger than that of 4 individual states, it requires a commitment to oversight and accountability. Being a journalist prepared me to ask those tough questions about costs and contracts and performance, about why things are done a certain way. And despite asking those questions, today, finding the truth is getting harder and harder. When we have politicians at the highest level making up facts without background or evidence, we have to acknowledge that we have a problem. When politicians at the highest level cover up lies that are easily provable, we have to acknowledge that we have a problem. And when politicians at the highest level denigrate journalists for doing their jobs, asking questions on behalf of the people, we have to acknowledge that we have a problem. This is where you all come in. As communicators, it's your job to share information that is honest and accurate. Whether you go into journalism, public relations, advertising, or politics, it's your responsibility to find the truth. Finding my truth has helped me make the leap from being a journalist to an elected official. And finding my truth has led me to be the first LGBTQ member of the Montgomery County Council. Now, the truth can sometimes be scary to uncover, and even scarier to accept. The truth is not always simple, and the truth cannot always be conveyed in hashtags or tweets, but the truth must be told. We, as neighbors, friends, family, and citizens, deserve it. Our democracy requires it. So as you graduates prepare to take on the world, realize that life is a journey. You may change interests, you may change careers, but as long as you open every door in the pursuit of your passion, your truth, walking forward one step in front of the other, you will be well served. And while on that path, continue searching for the truth that is in you, and the truth that is all around you. Thank you very much, and congratulations.